She thought it was a one-night stand, until she saw a diamond ring on her finger. Hello, let's hear another incredible story. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. I love narrating stories for you, so get ready. Let's start. The neon lights of Las Vegas Boulevard reflected off the window of Jasmine Monroe's 34th floor hotel room, creating a kaleidoscope of colors that only intensified her already pounding headache. She squeezed her eyes shut, hoping the cottonmouth feeling and the rhythmic throbbing in her temples would subside. The last thing she remembered clearly was her best friend Olivia, insisting they celebrate Jasmine's promotion to junior partner with just one more drink. That's when the weight of something on her left hand registered. Her eyes snapped open, focusing on a stunning diamond ring adorning her finger. The morning sun caught the stone, sending prisms dancing across the ceiling of the luxury suite she definitely hadn't checked into the night before. No, 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 she whispered, her legal mind already racing through Nevada marriage laws and annulment procedures. She'd spent the last 6 months meticulously planning every aspect of her life after Daniel had walked out, claiming she was too focused on her career. The irony of that accusation still stung. He'd been the one sleeping with his secretary. Since then, Jasmine had thrown herself into her work at Atlanta's most prestigious corporate law firm, earning that coveted promotion through carefully calculated moves and countless late nights. A soft groan from the other side of the king-sized bed made her freeze. Slowly, she turned her head to face what she hoped was just a terrible, hangover-induced hallucination. Instead, she found herself staring at quite possibly the most beautiful man she'd ever seen, even with his dark hair tousled from sleep and a day's worth of stubble shadowing his jaw. The events of the previous night started coming back in fragments. His warm laugh at the hotel bar as she'd complained about her ex, the way his hands had steadied her during an impromptu dance, the intensity in his hazel eyes when he'd cupped her face for their first kiss. The rest was a blur of champagne, Elvis music, and, oh God, a 24-hour wedding chapel. The stranger stirred again, his eyes fluttering open. He blinked a few times, confusion evident on his features as he took in his surroundings. When his gaze landed on Jasmine, a flicker of recognition crossed his face, followed immediately by shock as he noticed the matching band on his own left hand. "A dime Logan," he offered after a long moment of charged silence, his voice rough with sleep. "And I'm guessing by your expression that you don't remember getting married any more than I do." Jasmine sat up abruptly, clutching the sheet to her chest. "This isn't happening. This can't be happening." She spotted her phone on the nightstand and lunged for it, nearly falling out of bed in the process. 15 missed calls from Olivia, 23 text messages, and one very official-looking email confirmation from the Silver Bells wedding chapel, complete with attached marriage certificate. "I don't do spontaneous," she said, more to herself than to Logan. "I don't do Vegas weddings. I definitely don't marry strangers." Her fingers flew across the phone screen, already pulling up Nevada marriage laws. "Okay, we can fix this. We just need to file for an annulment. It should be simple, given the circumstances." Logan propped himself up on one elbow, watching her with an unreadable expression. "Simple," he echoed, though something in his tone made her pause her frantic legal research and really look at him. In the harsh morning light, she noticed the sadness lingering at the corners of his eyes, a depth of feeling that seemed at odds with the carefree spirit she hazily remembered from the night before. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair, and her gaze caught on a tattoo on his forearm, a camera lens surrounded by what looked like coordinates. "I'm a photographer," he said, following her line of sight. "Travel mostly, but I do portrait work too. Something about capturing those raw, unplanned moments when people are truly themselves." His lips quirked into a half-smile. "Though I have to admit, this is a first even for me." "I'm Jasmine," she finally offered, realizing she hadn't properly introduced herself. "Corporate lawyer. And this is," she gestured between them, "definitely a first for me too." Logan sat up fully, the sheet pooling around his waist, and Jasmine tried not to notice the lean muscles of his torso or the way the morning light painted shadows across his skin. "Look," he said, "I know this is crazy, but maybe we should at least get coffee before we rush to undo whatever happened last night. I feel like I owe my wife at least one sober conversation." The word wife sent a jolt through Jasmine's system. She opened her mouth to protest, to insist they head straight to the courthouse, but her phone buzzed with another incoming call from Olivia. The reality of her situation crashed over her. She was supposed to be back in Atlanta tomorrow, preparing for a major merger negotiation. Her carefully ordered world was spinning out of control. "Fine," she found herself saying, surprising them both. "Coffee. 1 hour. Then we go straight to handle the annulment." Logan nodded, but there was something in his eyes, a spark of curiosity or challenge, that made Jasmine's stomach flip in a way that had nothing to do with her hangover. As she gathered her scattered clothing from around the room, she couldn't shake the feeling that undoing last night's mistake might not be as simple as she hoped. In the bathroom mirror, Jasmine stared at her reflection. Her usually perfectly styled hair was a mess of curls, her makeup smudged, and her expensive blazer wrinkled beyond rescue. But what caught her attention was the slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth, one she couldn't quite suppress, despite the chaos of the situation. "Get it together, Monroe," she muttered to herself, splashing cold water on her face. She had a life to get back to, a career to focus on, and no time for charming photographers with sad eyes and gentle smiles. This was just a minor detour, she told herself firmly. By this time tomorrow, it would all be nothing more than a wild story to tell at dinner parties. If only she could ignore the way her heart skipped when she heard Logan humming quietly in the other room, or the strange feeling that maybe, just maybe, the biggest mistake of her life might turn out to be exactly what she needed. The cafe in the Bellagio's conservatory buzzed with morning activity, a stark contrast to the subdued atmosphere at Jasmine and Logan's corner table. Sunlight filtered through the glass ceiling, casting patterns through exotic flowers onto their untouched coffee cups. Jasmine's fingers drummed against her phone screen as she scrolled through local law firms. "Found one?" she announced, looking up to find Logan studying her through his camera lens. The quiet click of the shutter made her pause. "Are you taking my picture?" He lowered the camera, a vintage Leica that had seen better days, and shrugged. "Sorry, professional habit. The light was perfect, and you had this intense focus." He turned the camera to show her the preview screen. Jasmine's breath caught. The woman in the photo wasn't the disheveled mess she'd seen in the mirror that morning. Instead, Logan had captured her in a moment of fierce concentration, sunlight highlighting the determination in her eyes and the elegant line of her neck. It was intimate in a way that made her uncomfortable. "Delete it," she said, turning back to her phone. "I found a lawyer who specializes in quick annulments. His office is 20 minutes away, and he takes walk-ins." "Jasmine." Logan's voice was soft but firm enough to make her look up. "Before we rush into anything, don't you think we should try to remember what happened last night? I mean, we must have had a reason." She set her phone down harder than necessary. "Yes, tequila. Lots of it. And your friend, what was his name? The one who kept buying us shots?" "Antonio," Logan supplied, a shadow crossing his face. Is my brother's best friend." Something about his use of present tense for one word and past for another caught Jasmine's attention. "Was your brother's best friend?" Logan's fingers traced the rim of his coffee cup. "My brother David died 6 months ago. Rock climbing accident in Yosemite. Antonio's been checking up on me ever since, trying to get me to—" He trailed off, then forced a smile. "Let's just say he has strong opinions about my tendency to keep moving rather than dealing with things." The revelation hit Jasmine like a physical blow. 6 months, the same amount of time since her own life had imploded with Daniel's betrayal. She remembered fragments of their conversation at the bar, Logan talking about feeling untethered, her own confession about building walls to keep people out. "I'm sorry about your brother," she said softly. But that doesn't change the fact that this, she held up her left hand, was a mistake we need to fix. Maybe. Logan pulled out his wallet and extracted a folded piece of paper. But explain this. Jasmine took the paper, recognizing the letterhead of the Silver Bells wedding chapel. Her eyes widened as she read, This is a real marriage license, with witness signatures. She looked closer. Wait, one of the witnesses is Judge Richard Harrison, the family court judge, who apparently is an old family friend I haven't seen since David's funeral. Logan ran a hand through his hair. And, according to Antonio's very detailed text messages this morning, we ran into him at the bar. He was in town for a judicial conference, and he agreed to witness a drunk wedding between strangers. That's the thing. Logan leaned forward. Antonio swears we weren't that drunk, says we talked for hours, that when we went to the chapel we were... He checked his phone, reading directly from Antonio's text, disgustingly clear-eyed about the whole thing. Jasmine's legal mind latched onto this detail. That doesn't make sense. I would never... You did. A new voice interrupted them. They looked up to find a woman in her 50s, wearing judicial robes, standing at their table. Her expression a mixture of amusement and concern. Hello, Logan. It's been too long. She turned to Jasmine. And you must be the brilliant lawyer who gave my old friend Dick Harrison a run for his money debating contract law at 2 a.m. Judge Chen, Logan stood to greet her. You were there too. I was indeed. Judicial conference. Remember? Dick and I were catching up over drinks when you two came in. She pulled up a chair, uninvited. But I have to say, in 20 years on the bench, I've never seen a couple so methodically discuss the pros and cons of marriage before going through with it. You even drafted a prenup on a napkin. Jasmine's head spun. We did what? Oh yes, very detailed for something written in blue ballpoint. Dick was quite impressed. Judge Chen's eyes twinkled. Which is why, when you called my chambers this morning asking about annulment proceedings, I decided to stop by. You're the judge assigned to our case. Jasmine felt the floor tilting beneath her. I am. And while I respect your right to seek an annulment, I'm exercising my judicial discretion to require a 30-day cooling-off period before hearing your petition. You can't do that, Jasmine protested, then caught herself. I mean, Your Honor, there's no legal precedent. Actually, there is. Nevada Revised Statute 125.360 gives me considerable latitude in these matters. Judge Chen stood. 30 days. Counselor, use them wisely. She nodded to Logan. Give my best to your mother. She must be thrilled about the wedding. As Judge Chen walked away, Jasmine slumped in her chair. Your mother doesn't know, does she? Logan's wince was answer enough. Voo, she's been worried about me since David. This might actually give her a heart attack. My parents are going to kill me, Jasmine muttered. And my firm... Oh God, the merger next week. I can't deal with this right now. Hey! Logan reached across the table, his hand covering hers. The warmth of his touch sent an unexpected shiver up her arm. We'll figure it out. 30 days isn't that long. Jasmine pulled her hand away, ignoring the lingering sensation of his skin against hers. Easy for you to say? You can work from anywhere. I have a life in Atlanta. Responsibilities? Then I'll come to Atlanta. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Jasmine stared at him, this stranger who was supposedly her husband, and saw nothing but sincerity in his eyes. Hey, why would you do that? Logan picked up his camera again, showing her the photo he'd taken earlier. Because something made us choose this last night. Don't you want to know what it was? Outside, the Vegas sun beat down on the strip. Tourists already crowding the sidewalks despite the early hour. Jasmine Monroe, pragmatic, careful, controlled Jasmine Monroe, found herself nodding. Fine. 30 days. But then we get the annulment. Logan's smile held a hint of challenge, if that's what we still want. As they exchanged contact information and made plans for his flight to Atlanta, Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that her carefully ordered life was about to become very, very complicated. And the scariest part, A small voice in the back of her mind was whispering that maybe, just maybe, that wasn't such a bad thing. Jasmine's downtown Atlanta apartment had always been her sanctuary, a carefully curated space of clean lines, muted grays, and pristine white surfaces. Now, watching Logan wheel his battered suitcase across her expensive wool rug, she felt like someone had released a wild animal into a museum. "The guest room is down the hall," she said, gesturing with one hand while checking her work emails on her phone with the other. Bathrooms shared, but she looked up to find Logan standing motionless in her living room, staring at the wall of windows overlooking the city skyline. "The light in here is incredible," he murmured, already reaching for his camera. "The way the buildings catch the sunset." "No photos," Jasmine cut in. "Rule number 1, this stays between us. No one at my firm can know about this." She twisted the wedding ring she'd moved to her right hand. "As far as anyone's concerned, you're an old friend staying with me while doing a photography project in the city." Logan lowered his camera with a slight frown. "And what exactly am I supposed to photograph? Since you vetoed taking pictures of my wife in her natural habitat." The word wife still made her stomach flip. "Atlanta has plenty of subjects: parks, architecture, street scenes." Her phone buzzed with an incoming call. "I have to take this. Make yourself at home, just don't move anything." She retreated to her home office, closing the door firmly before answering. "Olivia, I swear if you tell anyone—" "Girl, I still can't believe you got married. In Vegas, to a hot photographer." Her best friend's voice vibrated with excitement. "I mean, I know we're getting it annulled, but still, Jasmine Monroe did something spontaneous." "Keep your voice down," Jasmine hissed, though she was alone in the room. "And we're not talking about this. I have the Miller merger presentation tomorrow morning, and I need to focus." Fine, but you have to admit, he's gorgeous. Those eyes, that jawline, and the way he looked at you when—" "Goodbye, Olivia." Jasmine hung up, then slumped in her ergonomic office chair. She could hear Logan moving around her apartment, the unfamiliar sound of another person in her space, making it impossible to concentrate on the merger documents spread across her desk. A knock on her door made her jump. "Come in." Logan poked his head in, holding 2 mugs of coffee. "Peace offering. I found your fancy coffee maker, and I make a mean latte." The rich aroma of perfectly brewed coffee filled the room as he set 1 mug on her desk. Despite herself, Jasmine took a sip. It was, annoyingly, the best latte she'd had in months. "Thanks," she muttered, then noticed he was looking at the photos on her wall, her law school graduation, family pictures, a shot of her winning her first major case. "You have a beautiful smile," he said quietly, "when you let yourself." Something in his tone made her look up. He was studying one particular photo, taken at her parents' 30th anniversary party last year. She was laughing, head thrown back, caught in a moment of pure joy. "That was before," she trailed off, not wanting to mention Daniel. "Before you decided it was safer to keep everything under control," Logan finished, his voice gentle. He turned to face her, leaning against the doorframe. "You know, sometimes the best photographs happen when something unexpected breaks through the perfect composition. This isn't one of your artistic metaphors, Logan. This is my life, my career." She gestured to the documents on her desk. "Tomorrow morning, I have to convince the board of Miller Technologies to agree to a merger that could make or break my shot at full partner. I can't afford any distractions." "Is that what I am? A distraction?" Before she could answer, the doorbell rang. They stared at each other for a moment before Jasmine's eyes widened in horror. "Oh, no, 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 no. What time is it?" "Just past 6. Why, hide." "What?" "It's Monday. Every Monday at 6. My parents bring dinner. Family tradition. They can't see you here." Jasmine was already shoving Logan toward the guest room. "They'll ask questions, and I can't lie to them, and—" "Jasmine!" Her mother's voice called from the hallway. "Honey, we used our key. We brought your favorite, my special oxtail stew." Logan raised an eyebrow. "Hide? Really? What are we, teenagers?" "Please," Jasmine whispered. "I'll tell them eventually. Just Not today. I can't handle their disappointment right now. Something flickered in Logan's eyes. Understanding, maybe, or recognition. He nodded once and slipped into the guest room just as Jasmine's parents rounded the corner. "There's our junior partner." Dr. Monroe beamed, pulling his daughter into a hug. "All ready for the big presentation tomorrow?" "Of course she is," Mrs. Monroe said, heading for the kitchen with her containers of food. "Our girl's always prepared, though you look tired, sweetheart." "Are you sleeping enough?" Jasmine forced a smile, trying not to look at the guest room door or the second coffee mug on her desk. "Just nervous about tomorrow." "You'll do wonderfully," her mother assured her. "Now, tell me you've at least been eating properly. And is that men's cologne I smell?" Jasmine's heart stopped. She'd forgotten Logan wore cologne, something woodsy and warm that had filled her apartment within hours of his arrival. "Or new air freshener," she blurted. "Sandalwood, very trendy." Her father narrowed his eyes, looking around the apartment. "Is that a suitcase by the couch?" "Mine," Jasmine said quickly. "From the Vegas trip. Haven't had time to unpack." In the guest room, something fell with a soft thud. Her parents turned toward the sound. "Probably just the neighbor's cat," Jasmine said, her voice an octave too high. "He likes to jump against the walls sometimes. Let's eat before the food gets cold." As she herded her parents toward the dining room, Jasmine caught a glimpse of Logan through the crack in the guest room door. He was grinning, clearly enjoying her predicament. She shot him a warning glare, but couldn't quite suppress her own smile. Later, after her parents left and Logan emerged from his hiding place, they sat on her balcony watching the city lights come alive. "Your parents seem nice," he said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Your mom's stew smelled amazing." "I saved you a plate," Jasmine admitted. "It's in the microwave." Logan's surprise was evident. "You did." She shrugged, not meeting his eyes. "Well, I couldn't let my husband go hungry, could I?" It was meant to be sarcastic, but somehow it came out softer than intended. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their strange situation settling around them like the gathering dusk. "Jasmine," Logan's voice was quiet. "Thank you for letting me stay here." She turned to look at him, then really look at him. In the fading light, she could see the grief he carried, the loneliness that matched her own. For a moment, she allowed herself to wonder what would happen if they stopped fighting, whatever this was between them. Then her phone buzzed with another work email, and reality crashed back in. "I should prep for tomorrow," she said, standing abruptly. "Help yourself to the stew, and Logan, next time my parents come over." "Don't worry." His smile held a hint of sadness. "I'll make myself scarce." As Jasmine walked back to her office, she couldn't shake the feeling that hiding Logan from her parents wasn't the only thing she was running from. But she had a presentation to nail tomorrow, a career to focus on, and exactly 27 days left until their annulment hearing. She just had to keep her heart locked down until then. Simple, right? The conference room on the 42nd floor of Preston and Associates gleamed like a freshly polished diamond. Jasmine stood at the head of the table, her presentation materials arranged with military precision, watching Atlanta's morning traffic crawl far below. She'd arrived 2 hours early to prepare, just as she had for every major meeting of her career. But for the first time, her mind kept wandering from profit projections and merger strategies to the scene she'd left in her apartment that morning. Logan in her kitchen, barefoot and sleep-rumpled, making French toast like he belonged there. "Save some for after your presentation," he'd said, sliding a plate toward her. Comfort food is good for celebrating victories. She'd almost missed her early morning prep time because of him. Almost let herself be tempted by the domestic scene he'd created. With morning sunlight streaming through her windows and the rich scent of coffee and cinnamon filling her usually sterile kitchen. "Focus," she muttered to herself now, straightening an already perfectly aligned stack of documents. The door opened behind her, and she spun to find Richard Preston himself entering, her mentor and the firm's founding partner. "Jasmine," he smiled warmly. "Early as always. How are you feeling about the Miller presentation?" "Prepared, sir. I've run through every possible objection, and I think Actually, he interrupted, I wanted to discuss something else first. He closed the door. The New York office called yesterday. They're looking for someone to head up their corporate division. Your name came up. Jasmine's heart skipped. New York. But I thought Christina was handling their corporate. She's stepping down, starting a family, wants a less demanding role. He gave Jasmine a meaningful look. They're looking for someone stable, established, preferably with strong family values, given their more conservative client base. The irony of his timing made her wedding ring, now safely hidden in her desk drawer, feel like it was burning a hole through the wood. I'm honored they'd consider me, she managed. Nothing to decide yet. Let's see how today's presentation goes. He patted her shoulder. But between us, you're exactly what they're looking for. Young, brilliant, no messy personal entanglements to complicate things. The boardroom began filling with executives from both firms. Jasmine pushed thoughts of New York, Logan, and complicated personal entanglements aside, slipping into her professional persona like armor. She was halfway through her presentation when her phone buzzed. She'd meant to silence it, but in her distraction that morning, the message preview flashed briefly on her laptop screen, visible only to her. Logan found the perfect shot of Atlanta's heart. Reminded me of you, all steel and glass on the outside, but there's this moment when the light hits just right. A photo loaded beneath the message, her own building, caught in that magical moment when sunrise turned its windows to gold, making the stern corporate architecture look almost warm, almost vulnerable. Ms. Monroe, she snapped back to attention, finding every eye in the room on her. Mr. Miller, the tech company's CEO, was watching her with raised eyebrows. Sorry, yes, as I was saying. She looked down at her notes, but the carefully memorized words suddenly felt hollow. She thought of Logan's photo, of how he'd seen beauty in something everyone else dismissed as cold and corporate. She set her notes aside. Odisse, actually, let me tell you what really excites me about this merger. She clicked to a slide showing Miller's latest innovation, a medical imaging technology that could revolutionize early cancer detection. This isn't just about market share or profit margins. This is about taking your brilliant innovation and giving it the reach it deserves. For the next 20 minutes, she spoke from the heart about the human impact of their technology, weaving in the practical benefits of the merger, but keeping the focus on what really mattered. When she finished, the room was silent. Then Mr. Miller smiled. That's exactly what I needed to hear. He turned to Richard Preston. Your junior partner here understands something many lawyers miss, the soul behind the numbers. You'll have our answer by end of day, but, he winked at Jasmine, I think you can guess what it'll be. The rest of the day passed in a blur of congratulations and planning meetings. It was past 8 when Jasmine finally packed up her office, her mind already cycling through the implications of her success. The New York position loomed large in her thoughts. She was so distracted she almost crashed into someone waiting by her car in the parking garage. Logan, what are you doing here? He held up a paper bag that smelled suspiciously like her mother's oxtail stew. Thought you might be hungry, and he pulled out a bottle of champagne. I had a feeling we might have something to celebrate. How did you know? I didn't. But I've been watching you all day. He nodded toward the building's atrium, visible from the garage. The way you move through this place, the respect in people's eyes when they see you. I got some amazing shots. I told you no photos, she said, but there was no heat in it. These aren't for sharing. They're for you, to show you what I see when I look at you. Something warm unfurled in her chest. And what's that? Someone extraordinary. He stepped closer. Someone who just gave the presentation of her life not by sticking to her script, but by letting her real self shine through. You were watching from the atrium. The glass walls in your boardroom make for excellent framing. His smile turned teasing. I particularly enjoyed watching you read my text. Jasmine felt her cheeks warm. You did that on purpose. Maybe. He held up the bag again. So, want to celebrate? I reheated the stew exactly according to your mother's instructions. Apparently, There's a very specific technique involved. She should say no, should remind him this was temporary, that she had a potential move to New York to consider, that getting too comfortable with him would only complicate things. Instead, she found herself saying, "My place or yours." His laugh echoed in the parking garage. "Considering I'm currently living in your guest room." "Right," she shook her head, fighting a smile. "You know what I mean." "I do?" His expression softened. "And Jasmine? What you did in there today? Showing your real self? It was beautiful." As they drove home, and when had her apartment started feeling like home to both of them, Jasmine caught herself watching Logan in the passenger seat, his profile lit by passing streetlights. He was humming along to the radio, completely at ease in her world, despite how hard she'd tried to keep him separate from it. "Logan, thank you for the text, for seeing me." He turned to look at her, his eyes warm in the darkness. "Always." The word hung between them, full of promise and possibility, and for the first time since this crazy situation began, Jasmine didn't immediately try to shut down the flutter of hope in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, some mergers were worth the risk. Logan's makeshift darkroom in Jasmine's guest bathroom was a clear violation of their "don't change anything" agreement. But when she discovered him there late one evening, surrounded by drying photographs and the sharp scent of developing chemicals, she couldn't bring herself to object. "These are all from this week?" she asked, carefully stepping around strips of photos hanging from improvised clotheslines. Each one captured a different facet of Atlanta: street performers in Centennial Park, children playing in fountain sprays, elderly couples on park benches. "The city has so many stories," Logan said, not looking up from the print he was developing. "Each corner holds a different piece of someone's life." Jasmine found herself drawn to one particular photo, a young woman in a business suit, caught mid-laugh as she shared coffee with an elderly man in working clothes. Something about their unexpected connection, the joy in their faces, made her pause. "That's from the cafe downstairs," Logan said, coming to stand beside her. "The woman's a financial analyst. The man's been maintaining the building's HVAC system for 30 years. They have coffee together every Wednesday morning." "How do you know that?" I asked. His shoulder brushed hers as he reached for another photo. "Hey, people love sharing their stories if you take the time to listen." The casual contact sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with the bathroom's chemical smell. They'd been living together for 10 days now, and these moments of accidental intimacy were becoming more frequent and more difficult to ignore. "I have a client dinner tomorrow night," she said, stepping away. "Don't wait up." Actually, Logan rubbed the back of his neck, a gesture she'd learned meant he was nervous. "I got an invitation to show some of my work at a small gallery in Buckhead. Openings tomorrow night. I was hoping maybe after your dinner." The hope in his voice made her chest tight. "Logan, just as friends," he added quickly. "Technically, we're still married. You should at least see what your husband does for a living." She should say no. Should maintain the careful distance she'd been trying to keep. Instead, she heard herself say, "Text me the address. I'll try to stop by." His smile lit up the cramped bathroom. "I'll save you some champagne." The next evening, Jasmine sat through her client dinner in one of Buckhead's finest restaurants, only half listening to discussions about contract renewals. Her phone buzzed with a text from Logan, a photo of the gallery, lights glowing warmly in the twilight. "Ah, beautiful venue," she texted back. "Missing something, though," came his reply. She smiled despite herself, then caught her reflection in a window and quickly schooled her expression. Richard Preston was watching her from across the table with curious eyes. "Hot date waiting?" he asked when the clients left. "No, just a friend's art showing." "Ah," he studied her over his whiskey. "And you know, the New York office is very interested after hearing about the Miller presentation. They'd like you to fly up next week for preliminary discussions." The opportunity she'd always wanted, handed to her on a silver platter. So why did it feel like a weight in her stomach? "I'll check my schedule," she managed. "Good. And Jasmine?" His tone turned fatherly. "I know you're young, still finding your way, but remember, Distractions can derail even the most promising careers. She thought of Logan's photos, of how he found beauty in life's distractions, but she just nodded and gathered her things. The gallery was buzzing when she arrived. Logan's photographs lined the walls, stark cityscapes softened by human moments, each one telling a story that made viewers lean in close, searching for details. "You made it!" His voice behind her was warm with pleasure. She turned to find him in a black blazer over a charcoal shirt, looking more polished than she'd ever seen him. Something in her chest fluttered. "These are amazing," she said, gesturing to the photos. "You really see people, don't you?" "Some more than others." His eyes held hers. "Dance with me." "There's no music." He nodded toward a jazz quartet setting up in the corner. "There will be." "Logan," she glanced around the crowded gallery, "and do people will see?" "Let them." He held out his hand. "One dance, counselor, for luck." The quartet started playing, something soft and bluesy. Against her better judgment, Jasmine took his hand. His other arm slipped around her waist, pulling her close enough to catch the familiar scent of his cologne. "Everyone's watching your photos," she murmured. "Not us." "I'm not looking at my photos." She made the mistake of meeting his eyes then. The tenderness there made her breath catch. They swayed together as the music washed over them, and for a moment she let herself forget about New York, about the annulment, about all the reasons this was temporary. "There's one photo I haven't displayed," Logan said softly. "Want to see it?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. He led her to a quiet corner where a single photograph lay wrapped in protective paper. "I took this the morning after the Miller presentation." Jasmine unwrapped it carefully. The photo showed her asleep on her couch, still in her work clothes, an empty champagne glass on the coffee table beside her. But it was the expression on her sleeping face that caught her breath, peaceful, unguarded, almost luminous in the early morning light. "I've never seen myself like this," she whispered. "I see you like this all the time." Logan's hand found the small of her back. "When you forget to keep your walls up, when you let yourself just be." The air between them grew thick with possibility. Jasmine looked up to find Logan watching her with an intensity that made her knees weak. "Why didn't you display this one?" she asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. "Some moments." His thumb traced small circles on her back. "Some moments you want to keep just for yourself." The gallery, the music, the other patrons, everything faded away. There was only Logan's hand on her back, his eyes on her face, and the overwhelming urge to close the distance between them. Her phone's harsh ring shattered the moment. "Jasmine Monroe," she answered automatically, stepping back from Logan. "Yes, Mr. Preston. No, you're not interrupting anything. Monday morning meeting with New York. Yes, I'll be there." When she hung up, the spell was broken. Logan had retreated a step, his expression carefully neutral. "New York? It's just a meeting," she said quickly. "Preliminary discussions about a promotion." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Congratulations. You deserve it." "Logan, you should go home, get some rest. Big week ahead." He turned back to the gallery. "Thanks for coming tonight." She wanted to explain, to tell him about the pressure she felt, the expectations weighing on her. Instead, she clutched the wrapped photograph to her chest and walked away. In her car, she finally let herself cry, the photo on her passenger seat, a reminder of everything she was too afraid to reach for. Back in her apartment, she hung the photo in her bedroom, the one room Logan never entered. A reminder of the woman she could be if she was brave enough to let her walls down. 20 more days until the annulment hearing. 20 days to decide if she was really ready to choose safety over the chance at something real. The photo seemed to mock her with its captured moment of peace, showing her a version of herself she wasn't sure she was ready to become. The first crack in their careful charade appeared on a Wednesday morning, exactly 16 days before their scheduled annulment hearing. Jasmine was rushing through her morning routine, preparing for a pre-New York interview video call, when she heard voices in her kitchen, Logan's familiar baritone and another achingly familiar one that stopped her cold. "Mom," she called out. hurrying down the hallway. "What are you—" The scene in her kitchen made her freeze. Logan, wearing an apron she didn't even know she owned, was showing her mother how to properly foam milk for lattes. They both looked up at her arrival, wearing matching expressions of domestic contentment. "Honey," her mother beamed, "I was just dropping off some files you left at our house, and I met your friend." She gave Logan an appraising look. "He makes wonderful coffee." "I had a good teacher in Seattle," Logan said, sliding a perfectly crafted latte across the counter to Jasmine. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, and she pulled back too quickly, nearly spilling the drink. Her mother's eyes narrowed at the interaction. "Logan was just telling me about his photography. Did you know he's having a show at the Buckhead Gallery?" "I might have heard something about that." Jasmine took a too large sip of her latte, burning her tongue. "He's got such an interesting perspective on family dynamics in his work." Her mother settled onto one of the kitchen bar stools like she planned to stay a while. All about capturing those intimate moments between people who love each other. Logan caught Jasmine's eye over her mother's head, his expression both apologetic and amused. "Speaking of intimate moments," he said, "I should get going. I have a shoot at Piedmont Park this morning." "Oh, but I was hoping you'd show me more of your portfolio," Mrs. Monroe protested. "And maybe stay for lunch. I'd love to hear more about how you and Jasmine reconnected after all these years." Jasmine choked on her coffee. "Actually, Mum, I have a really important video call this morning. For the New York position." "New York?" Logan's voice was carefully neutral, but she saw his hands tighten on the camera bag he was packing. "You didn't mention it was today." "It's just preliminary," she said quickly. "Nothing decided yet." Her mother looked between them, something knowing in her expression. "Well, don't let me keep you from your call. Logan, dear, you must come to dinner soon. My husband would love to hear about your travels." After Logan left and her mother finally departed, but not before giving Jasmine a look that promised future interrogation, Jasmine collapsed onto her couch. Her phone buzzed with a text from Logan. "Sorry about that. She caught me off guard, but she's wonderful. I see where you get your smile." Before she could respond, her laptop chimed with an incoming video call. She smoothed her blazer, checked her lipstick, and clicked accept. "Ms. Monroe," the head of the New York office greeted her. "I hope we're not catching you at a bad time." "Not at all," she lied, pushing thoughts of Logan and her mother aside. "I'm very excited to discuss the opportunity." The interview went well until the final question. "One last thing," the senior partner said. "Our client base is very traditional. Family values are important to them. Are you married, Mrs. Monroe?" Jasmine's hand went to her right ring finger, where her wedding band usually sat when she wasn't at work. It's complicated. Complicated isn't what we're looking for." His tone cooled slightly. "Perhaps we should revisit this conversation when your personal situation is more settled." After the call ended, Jasmine sat in silence, staring at her blank screen. Her phone buzzed again. Logan, sending a photo he'd just taken at the park. A young couple on a morning jog had stopped to help an elderly woman whose groceries had spilled. The three of them were laughing together, the sunrise turning everything golden. "Sometimes the best moments are the unplanned ones," his caption read. She was still staring at the photo when her office phone rang. Jasmine Monroe speaking. "Ms. Monroe," an unfamiliar female voice. "This is Amanda Chen, Judge Chen's clerk. She asked me to call about scheduling a quick conference before your annulment hearing." "Oh, yes, of course." Jasmine reached for her calendar. "Great. And will Mr. Reyes be joining us?" "The judge specifically requested both parties attend. I have to check his schedule." "Perfect. Oh, and the judge wanted me to remind you both to bring the napkin." "The napkin?" "The prenuptial agreement. The one you drafted at the Silver Bells Chapel. Judge Chen says it's crucial to the proceedings." Jasmine's blood ran cold. "Right, that napkin." After hanging up, she called Logan. "Please tell me you have the napkin from that night," she said without preamble. "Hello to you too, wife." His voice was teasing. "Missing me already?" "Logan, I'm serious. Judge Chen wants to see it at a conference next week. Apparently, what we wrote that night is important. A pause. I thought you had it. Why would I have it? I was wearing a cocktail dress. Where would I have put it? Okay, don't panic. I'll call Antonio. He was there. He might remember what we wrote. Or maybe the judge. No, Jasmine cut him off. No more involving other people. This is already complicated enough. Because of New York, she sighed. Logan, hey, his voice softened. I come to the park. I'm about to photograph this amazing street performer who does bubble art. She makes these huge, rainbow-catching bubbles that float through the whole park. It's magical. I have work. You have life, Jasmine. Sometimes they're the same thing. She thought about the New York partner's words about settled, personal situations, about her mother's knowing look in the kitchen, about the way Logan's presence in her apartment had somehow made it feel more like home than ever before. 1 hour, she said finally, and we need to talk about what we're going to tell Judge Chen. I'll buy you one of those pretzels you pretend not to love, he countered, and maybe we can talk about what we're going to tell your mother too. Despite everything, Jasmine found herself smiling. You're impossible, yet here you are, still talking to me. Here I am, she echoed softly, and realized she wasn't just talking about the phone call. When she hung up, she stared at her reflection in her office window. The polished professional looking back at her seemed somehow less real than the woman in Logan's photographs, the one who could laugh and feel and maybe even fall in love. 16 days until the annulment hearing. 16 days to find a missing napkin that might change everything. 16 days to decide if she was really ready to let go of the best mistake she'd ever made. She grabbed her keys and headed for the park. The Silver Bells wedding chapel looked different in the harsh light of sobriety. Jasmine stood in the empty parking lot, squinting at her phone as she tried to make sense of the grainy security footage Antonio had sent them. Logan leaned close, his breath warm against her ear as they watched their past selves stumble through the chapel doors. I can't believe you convinced me to fly to Vegas for this, she muttered. You're the one who said we needed to retrace our steps. His shoulder brushed hers as he reached to pause the video. Look, there. The napkin was in your hand when we went in. The footage showed a younger, happier version of herself, clutching what looked like a cocktail napkin, gesturing animatedly as she talked to Logan. Even through the grainy quality, their chemistry was obvious, the way they kept gravitating toward each other, sharing secret smiles and lingering touches. We really weren't that drunk, were we? She asked quietly. Logan's expression turned thoughtful. No, I remember being clear about you, about everything. Before she could process that, the chapel's door chimed. A young woman in an Elvis-themed uniform stepped out. Mr. Reyes, Judge Harrison called ahead, said you'd be coming by. She smiled warmly. Hard to forget you two. Most romantic prenup I've ever witnessed. Jasmine and Logan exchanged looks. You saw what we wrote? Honey, I typed it up for the judge. Standard procedure. She disappeared inside, then returned with a manila folder. We keep copies of everything, legal requirement in Nevada, though I have to say yours was unique. Jasmine's hands shook slightly as she opened the folder. Inside was a formal-looking document and, preserved in a plastic sleeve, a blue ink-covered cocktail napkin from the Bellagio. I'll give you some privacy, the clerk said with a knowing smile, retreating inside. They sat on a bench outside the chapel, the napkin between them. Jasmine traced her own handwriting, surprisingly steady despite the circumstances. When love finds you unexpectedly, don't let fear make the decision. Below that, in Logan's more artistic scrawl, promise to see each other, really see each other, even when it's easier to look away. Their signatures were at the bottom, along with an addendum in Judge Harrison's precise hand. Witness two souls choosing truth over fear. May they remember this courage when morning comes. We wrote vows, Jasmine whispered. Not a prenup. Keep reading, Logan said softly. She turned to the formal document. It was indeed a prenuptial agreement, but not like any she'd seen in her legal career. Instead of dividing assets, it listed promises. 1. To support each other's dreams, even when they diverge from our own. 2. To remember that love doesn't diminish ambition, it gives it purpose. 3. To choose each other actively, every day, not out of obligation but desire. 4. To face fear together, rather than let it drive us apart. This is why Judge Chen wants to see it, Logan realized. We didn't just get drunk and get married. We made a choice. Jasmine stood abruptly, pacing in front of the bench. This doesn't change anything. We still barely knew each other. We still need to run away. Logan's voice was gentle but firm. Like you're running to New York. She spun to face him. That's not fair. This is a huge opportunity for my career. I know. He stood, closing the distance between them. And I would never ask you to give that up. But Jas, he reached for her hand, the one still holding the napkin. Read what you wrote that night. Don't let fear make the decision. Which part of this are you really afraid of? New York, or the fact that you might want something else too? Before she could answer, her phone rang, her mother's ringtone. Jasmine stared at the screen, then at Logan, then at the napkin still clutched in their joined hands. I have to take this, she said, pulling away. Mom, no, I'm in Vegas for work. She winced at the lie. What? Slow down. What do you mean you found wedding photos? Logan's eyes widened. Jasmine put the phone on speaker just in time to hear her mother say, they were mixed in with those files I dropped off. Beautiful shots. Though I have to say, I'm a little hurt you didn't tell us about the photographer who's been staying with you. Is actually your... Mom! Jasmine cut her off, heart racing. And I can explain. Oh, there's no need to explain why you married that wonderful young man, though I would like to know why you're pretending he's just a friend, and why you're in Vegas again instead of home with your husband. Logan stepped closer, his presence steady and warm beside her. Mrs. Monroe, he said into the phone, I think maybe we all need to have dinner together, tonight, when we get back. Her mother's voice turned knowing. So you're together in Vegas? Jasmine met Logan's eyes. He nodded encouragingly. Yes, she said finally. We're together. After promising to explain everything over dinner and hanging up, Jasmine slumped against Logan's chest. His arms came around her automatically, and she let herself sink into the comfort of his embrace. What are we going to tell them? She mumbled into his shirt. The truth. His hand stroked her back soothingly. That sometimes the best things in life are the ones we don't plan. She pulled back enough to look at him. When did you get so wise? Probably around the same time I fell in love with a brilliant lawyer who's afraid of her own heart. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Jasmine's breath caught. Logan, you don't have to say anything. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Just keep your promise. He nodded toward the napkin, still crumpled in her hand. Don't let fear make the decision. Standing there in the Vegas heat, with the tackiness of the wedding chapel behind them and an uncertain future ahead, Jasmine finally understood what they'd known that night 2 weeks ago. Sometimes the biggest risks bring the greatest rewards. Dinner with my parents, she said, straightening her shoulders. Then we figure out the rest. Logan's smile was soft and full of promise. One step at a time, counselor. As they headed for the airport, Jasmine carefully tucked both the napkin and the formal document into her briefcase, right next to her New York interview notes. She had 13 days until the annulment hearing to decide which future she was really afraid of losing. The answer, she was beginning to realize, had been written on a cocktail napkin all along. Jasmine's childhood home hadn't changed since she was a teenager. Same warm yellow walls, same family photos lining the staircase, same smell of her mother's cooking wafting from the kitchen. But tonight, watching Logan charm her parents over dinner, everything felt different. So, her father said, setting down his wine glass, you're telling us that our meticulously planned daughter got married in Vegas to a photographer she'd just met. He turned to his wife. And you're surprisingly calm about this. Mrs. Monroe was indeed smiling as she passed Logan a second helping of her signature jerk chicken. Have you seen the way he looks at her, James? The way she relaxes when he's near? She patted Logan's hand. Though I do wish we'd been there for the ceremony. Mom, Jasmine started, but Logan cut in smoothly. Actually, Mrs. Monroe, I've been thinking about that. He pulled out his camera, connecting it to his phone. And I didn't get to photograph our wedding, but I've been documenting something else these past weeks. He handed the phone to Jasmine's parents. On the screen was a series of photos, moments Jasmine hadn't even realized he'd captured. Her laughing over morning coffee, absorbed in work on her laptop with reading glasses slipping down her nose, dancing in her kitchen to a song only she could hear. "These are beautiful," her father murmured, professional interest warming his voice. As one of Atlanta's most respected photographers himself, his approval meant something. "The light in your daughter's soul," Logan said quietly, "is the most beautiful thing I've ever tried to capture." Jasmine felt tears prick her eyes. Under the table, Logan's hand found hers, squeezing gently. "But why hide it?" her mother asked. "But why pretend he was just staying with you temporarily?" Jasmine took a deep breath. "Because it is temporary. We have an annulment hearing in 13 days. The silence that followed was deafening. An annulment. Her father's expression darkened. "Are you doing this to her?" he demanded of Logan. "Dad, no. It was mutual. We agreed. I have the New York position to consider, and Logan has his career, and you're running away," her mother finished softly. "Just like you've been running since Daniel. This isn't about Daniel, isn't it?" Mrs. Monroe's eyes were knowing. "Honey, I've watched you these past weeks. You smile more. You laugh easier. You're not just existing anymore. You're living." "She's right," Logan said, his thumb tracing circles on Jasmine's palm. "You're extraordinary when you let yourself be free." Jasmine pulled her hand away, standing abruptly. "I need some air." She fled to the back porch, where her father's garden stretched out under the Atlanta stars. A few minutes later, she heard footsteps behind her. "Your mother's showing Logan your baby pictures," her father said, settling into one of the porch chairs. "That boy's eating it up, especially the one of you arguing with the judge at your 5th-grade mock trial." Despite herself, Jasmine smiled. "I was very passionate about the rights of imaginary teddy bears. You've always known exactly what you wanted." He paused. "Until now. I know what I want," she insisted. "The New York position is perfect. It's everything I've worked for." "Is it?" He studied her in the darkness. "You know, when I first started photography, everyone told me to focus on weddings. That's where the money was. But I kept coming back to photojournalism, less prestigious, less lucrative, but it made my soul sing." He smiled. "Then I met your mother, and she encouraged me to follow that passion. Said any fool could take pretty wedding pictures, but it took someone special to capture the truth of a moment." "Logan does that," Jasmine said softly. "Captures truth. He captures you." Her father reached for something in his pocket, one of the photos from Logan's phone. It showed Jasmine in her office, backlit by the sunset, looking at something off camera with such tenderness it made her chest ache. "When was this taken?" "Last week. He brought me dinner during a late night at work. She swallowed hard. "I was looking at him." "I know." Her father's voice was gentle. "Baby girl, in 30 years of photography, I've never captured anyone looking at something they were ready to give up." Inside, they could hear Logan laughing with her mother, the sound carrying through the open windows. Jasmine closed her eyes. "The New York partners," she said finally. "They want someone with a settled personal life, traditional family values, and a Vegas wedding followed by an annulment doesn't qualify?" "No, but a real marriage might." She turned to face him. "That's not a reason to stay married." "No," he agreed, "but love is. Fear isn't a reason to get divorced either." Before she could respond, Logan appeared in the doorway. "Sorry to interrupt, but Mrs. Monroe insists we look at the family photo albums, all of them." His smile was warm, uncertain. "Join us?" Jasmine looked at her father, who squeezed her shoulder as he stood. "You know," he said quietly, Sometimes the best photographs are the ones we didn't plan to take. Inside, they found her mother had created a nest of photo albums on the living room floor. Logan sat cross-legged among them, genuinely fascinated by each childhood moment captured in fading prints. And oh, look at this one. Her mother held up a photo of teenage Jasmine in her debate team uniform. She was arguing that romance novels should be considered legitimate literature. The boy she was debating asked her out afterward. "What did she say?" Logan asked, though his eyes were on present-day Jasmine. "No, of course," her mother laughed. She said he clearly wasn't paying attention to her arguments if he thought that was an appropriate response to intellectual discourse. Jasmine settled onto the floor beside Logan, closer than necessary. His hand found hers again, and this time she didn't pull away. "Your daughter," he told her parents, "once gave me a 30-minute lecture on the proper way to load a dishwasher." "Did you learn anything?" her father asked, amused. "Everything." Logan's voice was soft. "I learned something new about her every day." Later, as they were leaving, her mother pressed a small photo album into Logan's hands. "Wedding photos," she whispered loudly enough for Jasmine to hear. "For inspiration. You know, in case you two want to do it again, properly this time." In the car, Logan didn't start the engine immediately. Instead, he turned to Jasmine in the darkness. "Your family is amazing. They're nosy and interfering and completely unsubtle. They love you." He touched her cheek gently. "They see you." "Logan," she leaned into his touch despite herself. "What are we doing? Right now? Sitting in your parents' driveway, trying to decide if we're brave enough to be happy." She thought about the photos he'd shown her parents, about the way he saw her, not just the polished professional she showed the world, but all of her, messy and real and alive. "Take me home," she said finally. His hand dropped. "Right, of course." "No," she caught his wrist. "Take me home, to our apartment, where you've turned my guest bathroom into a darkroom and rearranged my kitchen, and somehow made everything better just by being there." The smile that broke across his face was brighter than any camera flash. 13 days until the annulment hearing. 13 days to decide if she was ready to develop this snapshot of happiness into something permanent. Looking at Logan in the starlight, Jasmine thought maybe her father was right. Sometimes the unplanned pictures turned out to be the ones worth keeping. Jasmine stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of the New York law firm's 57th floor conference room, watching snow fall over Manhattan. The city sprawled beneath her like a dream she'd held since law school, powerful, pristine, perfect, and all she could think about was how Logan would have photographed this moment. "Ms. Monroe," the senior partner's voice pulled her back to the present. "Are you ready to begin?" She turned to face the panel of partners, their expressions expectant. This was it. The final interview, everything she'd worked for within reach. "Actually," she said, "there's something I need to disclose first." She pulled the napkin from her briefcase, along with the formal document from the Silver Bells Chapel. Over the past week, she'd read them so many times the words were etched in her memory. "I'm married," she said clearly. "It happened unexpectedly, but it's not a mistake. And if that's a problem for this position, I need to know now." The silence that followed was heavy with surprise. Finally, the managing partner spoke. "The traditional values we mentioned, they're about stability, Mrs. Monroe. A marriage could actually be an asset. Even if my husband is a freelance photographer who turns bathrooms into dark rooms and believes the best moments in life are the unplanned ones." A younger female partner leaned forward, interest sparking in her eyes. "Logan Reyes? I just saw his exhibition at the Buckhead Gallery online. His work on urban families is extraordinary." "It is," Jasmine agreed softly. "He sees people, really sees them. Well," the senior partner cleared his throat, "assuming this marriage is stable, that's the thing." Jasmine squared her shoulders. "We have an annulment hearing in 5 days. She watched their expressions shift from approval to confusion. The managing partner frowned. "I don't understand. You just said it wasn't a mistake." "It wasn't, isn't." She looked down at the napkin in her hands. but I've spent my whole life planning every step. This job was part of that plan. Logan teaches me to see the beauty in the unplanned moments, and I have to figure out if I'm brave enough to choose that over the safety of my carefully constructed future. Are you withdrawing your candidacy? No, she met his eyes. I'm being honest about who I am, who I'm becoming. If that's not what you're looking for, I understand. But I won't pretend to be someone I'm not. Not anymore. Before anyone could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from Logan. Got the call. Paris exhibition confirmed for next month. They want 30 pieces on American Family Redefined. Her heart clenched. They hadn't discussed his Paris opportunity since that first week. He'd been quiet about it, letting her focus on New York, always putting her dreams first. Ms. Monroe, the senior partner's voice was careful. The position requires a minimum 2-year commitment. 2 years. In New York. While Logan was in Paris, capturing other people's moments of joy, her phone buzzed again. This time, a photo. The view from their Atlanta apartment at sunrise. The city wreathed in early morning mist. Logan had caught her silhouette in the frame, a cup of coffee in her hands, looking out at the awakening city. The caption read, "Some views change your perspective forever." "And I'm sorry," she said, gathering her things, "but I don't think I'm what you're looking for after all." She was halfway to the door when the female partner called out, "The exhibition in Paris. Would you be going with him?" Jasmine turned back. "I don't know, we haven't discussed it, but I'd like the chance to figure it out together." The woman smiled, something like recognition in her expression. "And I turned down a Supreme Court clerkship 20 years ago to follow my heart. Never regretted it." She handed Jasmine a business card. "When you're ready to return to corporate law, on your own terms, call me." The snow was falling harder when Jasmine emerged onto the Manhattan streets. She pulled out her phone, dialing Logan's number. "Hey," he answered on the first ring. "How did it—" "Come to Paris with me," she blurted out. A pause. "What? Your exhibition?" "I want to be there. I want to—" She took a deep breath. "I want to see it through your eyes. I want to learn to capture moments instead of always planning them. I want—" "Jasmine," his voice was rough with emotion. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying I choose you, choose us. If you still want that. If I still—" He laughed, a sound of pure joy. "Where are you right now?" "Outside the law firm. In the snow. Probably looking very unprofessional." "Look up." She did. Through the swirling snow, she saw him standing across the street, phone to his ear, camera hanging around his neck. "Logan!" She blinked. Sure, she was imagining him. "What are you doing here?" "Being spontaneous." He crossed the street toward her. "Also, your mother might have mentioned your final interview was today, and I might have decided that whatever choice you made, I wanted to be here for it." He reached her just as she started moving toward him. They met in the middle of the sidewalk, snow falling around them, New Yorkers streaming past with barely a glance at their reunion. "You came to New York," she whispered. "For me. I'd go anywhere for you." He brushed snow from her hair. "But only if you want me to." She answered by pulling him down into a kiss. His camera pressed between them as his arms came around her, and she could feel his smile against her lips. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "So, Paris, Paris," she smiled. "After we deal with Judge Chen, together." He pulled back slightly, reaching for his camera. "Stay right there." "Logan, it's snowing. I probably look—" "Perfect," he finished, snapping the photo. "You look perfect." Later, that photo would hang in their apartment, Jasmine in her interview suit, snow in her hair, laughing up at the camera with all the joy of someone who finally chose love over fear. But in that moment, there was only Logan's hand in hers, as they walked through the Manhattan snow, making plans for a future neither of them had expected. 5 days until the annulment hearing. But for the first time since this all began, Jasmine wasn't counting down. She was looking forward. The morning of their annulment hearing dawned clear and crisp, Atlanta's autumn light painting everything in shades of gold. Jasmine stood in front of her closet, fingers trailing over her collection of power suits. but reached instead for the blue dress Logan loved, the one she'd worn the night they met. Feeling nostalgic, his voice came from the doorway, warm with affection. She turned to find him in a charcoal suit she'd never seen before, his usual casual style polished into something that made her breath catch. "You cleaned up nice." "Well, it's not every day a man goes to court to not get divorced from his wife." He crossed the room to slip his arms around her waist. "You sure about this?" "About scandalizing the entire Atlanta legal community by staying married to my Vegas husband." She pretended to consider it. "I don't know. What's in it for me? Lifetime supply of perfectly crafted lattes." He pressed a kiss to her neck. "Plus, I hear Paris is beautiful in winter." Their flight to France was booked for next month. After his exhibition opening, they planned to spend the holidays exploring Europe while she figured out her next career move. The female partner in New York had already connected her with several international law firms interested in her unique perspective on corporate law. "Speaking of Paris," Jasmine said, "we should stop by the gallery after court. Antonio sent some shots from the chapel that might work for your American Family Redefined series." Logan's friend had finally revealed he'd been secretly photographing them that night in Vegas, capturing the real story behind their apparent drunken wedding. The photos showed them deep in conversation, writing on the napkin, looking at each other with clear eyes and certain hearts. "And already ahead of you?" Logan nodded toward his camera bag. "Though I was thinking of pairing them with something more recent." He pulled out his laptop, opening a folder labeled "Love in Progress." Inside were dozens of photos from their 30 days together, Jasmine working late while Logan brought her dinner, both of them dancing in their kitchen, quiet moments on their balcony watching the sunset, their story told through his lens. "Ubu, when did you take all these?" "Every day," he smiled. "I couldn't stop documenting the way you slowly let yourself be happy." Before she could respond, her phone chimed with a text from Olivia. "Courthouse steps in 20, bringing moral support and champagne for after." "Ready." Logan held out his hand. She took it, twining their fingers together. "Ready." The courthouse was busy with morning traffic when they arrived. Olivia was waiting on the steps with their families, both sets of parents, plus Antonio and, surprisingly, Judge Harrison from Vegas. "Couldn't miss this," the judge said, hugging them both. "Had to see how my favorite legal experiment turned out." Inside Judge Chen's chambers, Jasmine handed over both the napkin and the formal document from that night. The judge read them carefully, then looked up with twinkling eyes. Most people," she said, "come to Vegas looking for a quick thrill. You two somehow managed to write one of the most thoughtful prenuptial agreements I've ever seen." She held up the napkin. "This isn't just about marriage. It's about choosing each other's growth, supporting each other's dreams. It's about building a life that has room for both stability and spontaneity." She turned to Jasmine. Still want that annulment." Jasmine looked at Logan, who was watching her with the same warm certainty she'd seen in Antonio's photos from that first night. "No, Your Honor. We'd like to stay married, if you'll let us." Judge Chen smiled. "Let you? Honey, I've been rooting for you since you spent an hour arguing contract law in my hotel bar." She stamped something on their file. "By the power vested in me by the great state of Nevada, I hereby declare your marriage valid and legal." Again. Outside, their families were waiting with hugs and champagne. Jasmine's mother was already talking about hosting a proper reception, while Logan's father discussed camera equipment with Dr. Monroe. Antonio was showing Olivia the Vegas photos, both of them laughing at the story behind each shot. "Hey!" Logan pulled Jasmine aside as their families celebrated. "I have something for you." He handed her a small box. Inside was a new ring, not the impulse-bought diamond from Vegas, but a delicate band studded with tiny camera apertures. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Look inside." Engraved on the inner surface were the words from their napkin. "When love finds you unexpectedly, don't let fear make the decision." "I had another one made too." He showed her his matching band, engraved with his own words. "Promise to see each other, really see each other, even when it's easier to look away. Jasmine slipped the ring onto her finger, where it caught the morning light. Perfect timing. Speaking of timing, he reached for his camera. One last photo, to mark the moment. She nodded, but instead of posing, she pulled him into a kiss. She felt him smile against her lips as he held the camera out, capturing them both. Later, that photo would become the centerpiece of his Paris exhibition, the lawyer and the photographer caught between moments, creating their own definition of family. But right now, there was just this: Logan's arms around her, their family's laughter in the background, and the certainty that sometimes the best things in life are the ones you never saw coming. "Ready for our next adventure, Mrs. Monroe Reyes?" Logan asked softly. Jasmine looked up at her husband, really looked at him, the way he'd taught her to see the beauty in unplanned moments. "With you, always." The autumn sun painted them in perfect light as they joined their families, stepping forward together into a future neither of them had planned, but both had chosen. And somewhere, in a tacky Vegas chapel, a blue cocktail napkin told the beginning of their story, not of a drunken mistake, but of two people brave enough to recognize love when it found them. Sometimes, Jasmine realized, the most beautiful pictures are the ones that develop slowly, revealing their truth one moment at a time. All you have to do is keep your eyes open and your heart ready to be exposed. The end. If you were Jasmine, would you be brave enough to let go of your perfectly planned life for a chance at unexpected love? What would be harder for you to risk? A prestigious career opportunity or a chance at true happiness with someone who sees the real you? Your participation in this channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to this story until the end. Hopefully every moment, every detail in the story has brought you emotions, thoughts, and maybe a little joy or motivation. Thank you for spending time with us, and hope that the next stories will continue to accompany you and touch your heart.